All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our +3 panel discussion. We're so glad you all could join us. As you just heard, this is being recorded for those students who are not able to join us because of class or prior commitments. So for the attendees, you are on mute right now and will remain so throughout the duration of our panel discussion. If you would like to speak, we are able to give you that permission. So just let us know and we will allow you to ask a question. You can also feel free to submit questions in the chat as we're talking with our panelists as well. So I guess we will just jump right in. Rick, could you go to the next slide, please? Maybe not. Perfect. So just really quickly before we jump into our wonderful conversation with our amazing panelists this afternoon, we asked students to submit their questions in advance, and a lot of questions that we had were, of course, around the status of the +3 program for summer 2021. And I wanted to just start off with giving a quick update. Unfortunately, we don't have as much information as we wished we would have had at this point, but to let you all know, of course, the status of the program from what we know of right now. Student health and safety are our primary concern for all future programming. That being said, you may have seen communication from the university this week that outlined the possibility of mobility for the spring semester not being a feasible option at this point. So we're proceeding there with virtual program options. However, we are moving forward with summer 2021 as being the first time that we are able to have academic mobility programming with study abroad. So that being said, we're moving forward with the planning of the +3 2021 program, of course, understanding that the program will need to be more flexible as it has been in the past as we learn more about and monitor the changing conditions both here in the US and at our different locations abroad. So this could result in different dates in terms of travel than what we're used to, different program locations possibly, and more changes perhaps. So we will certainly be sharing these updates with students as we learn more and as things become more available, including when you can expect the program application to open and when the application deadline will be. Unfortunately, at this point, we just don't have a ton of information there, but some information on the screen for you all. The +3 website is a good place to go for resources. It'll be updated as information becomes available, and as well continue to check your emails for updates as we send them out. And so the last thing I'll leave you all with here is while this event is really focused on our +3 program specifically, I think a lot of what you'll hear from our panelists really can be applied to global programming on the whole, not just +3 specifically. So I would encourage you to think about how some of the things that you hear from our panelists today can be applied to your future study abroad opportunities or other global opportunities you may pursue as a student. So with that, I will go ahead and allow our panelists to introduce themselves. I think our next slide will show who is joining us today or not, and we can just stop sharing and I will kick off the panel. All right, perfect. Here's the panelists. Would it even be a Zoom call if we weren't having technical difficulties? We all laugh because we've all been there. Yeah, so our wonderful panelists today. I am Hillary Kohler, for those of you who don't know me. I'm the director of Pitt Business International Programs, and I'll be taking on the role of moderator for the panel this afternoon. And so then I guess rather than me just introducing everyone, I'd like to allow each panelist a moment to introduce themselves and maybe talk a little bit about how you've been involved with +3 over the years. So I guess we'll just go in order. And Chris, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to the group.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Kirchhoff. I work in the Swanson School of Engineering in the Transfer Programs Office, and I have been involved in +3 in a number of different ways. In 2011, I was the program assistant to the trip down to Viña del Mar in Chile, and in 2019, our most recent trip to China. And I'm going to be the program assistant for this year's program going to Japan. So kind of circled the globe and excited to share any experiences with you. And I guess I'll just hand it off to the next person, Sonia.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sonja. I'm from Augsburg in southern Germany. I think I'm the only international participant. Is that right? Yeah, so I'm very happy to be here. So over here, it's already 6:30 in the evening. I'm a research and teaching assistant at the University of Augsburg since 2015. I do research and teach, but I'm also involved in administrative work. So in my case, that's a Pittsburgh exchange program. I coordinate +3, so the 20 students that come to Augsburg usually in May, but I'm also coordinating the outgoing exchange with the CATS Graduate School of Business. In terms of +3, I'm doing everything from planning the program, budget planning, organizing the program, being present during the 2 weeks for any kind of questions, also supervising 15 German students who are also participating in the program. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing the +3 students next year. Would be nice, but we'll see. So I'll hand over to the next person. Thank you.
Great, thank you. It's so nice to have you with us too, and it's wonderful that you're in an international location and that you're able to join us. We're really glad that you're here. My name is Christine Lally, and I am the Director of International Programs in the Swanson School of Engineering, and I've been involved in the design and build of the +3 program for more than 13 years. So I go way back with this amazing program. I am sad to say I have not actually gone, but I have been the recruiter for a number of my amazing colleagues across Pitt, especially in the Swanson School. Chris, who you heard from, being one of my esteemed colleagues that we're lucky to have sent on the program. And it's really honestly just it's a program that so many of us who've been a part of it really feel a great sense of pride and connection to. And I believe it's because we've really gotten so much amazing feedback from students. A number of years ago, I collaborated with Dr. Josephine Olson, who is a faculty member that previously led on some of the +3 programs. And she and I actually did a published study about the impact of +3 on students' interest in continuing to do other international experiences. And it turned out that there were a lot of students who had in fact indicated that they wanted to do more. So that's part of why we love this program. It's great to be able to get started early in your college careers, and then to perhaps have the chance to continue whatever journey you want to go on globally or otherwise, getting involved in a lot of interesting activities on campus. So we're just excited to have a lot of interest every year among our students across the schools, and I'm very honored to have been a part of its growth and can't wait to see what the future brings us. So thank you. I'll pass it along to our next panelist.
I think that's me. Hello, my name is Grant Martzoff. I am a professor in the nursing school. I helped to launch the +3 Argentina trip, which is a trip between the business school and the School of Nursing. So we went on one fact-finding trip about 2 years ago, and then we led the +3 trip in 2019, and then obviously our most recent trip was canceled due to the pandemic. But we had been through a couple of the pre-departure classes, and we were pretty excited to go. So I'm very excited about the opportunity that +3 might happen in this summer. I really, really enjoy these trips, and I'm looking forward to answering some questions from students.
Great. Thanks, Grant. My name is Brian Schultz. I'm currently the Director of Global and Experiential Programs at the University Honors College, so I hold a role similar to Hillary and Christine. But for the purposes of this presentation, I come as I've come representing the +3 Vietnam program. So I've been on the ground with that program 4 different times. I've been faculty and a program assistant. So it's the plus three portfolio is wide and varied, both in terms of scope of content as well as geographic distribution of the locations. My heart sings a little loudly for Vietnam. The location and the program set up in the partner school that we have there are really special to me. So I look forward to sharing that experience with you as the day progresses. Thanks for having me. And then Dr. Teeter, certainly not last.
Thank you, Brian. So I am Dr. Teeter. I am a professor of accounting in the College of Business Administration and Katz Graduate School of Business. So I have led the Plus Three Costa Rica site since we kicked it off in 2015. So we've gone 5 years. It's been really interesting seeing kind of that experience as we've tried to incorporate new experiences for the students. We do some homestays in our location. We drink a lot of coffee and explore a lot of tropical agriculture. So it's a really great experience, and really it's been wonderful to kind of take some of these different ideas from engineering and business perspectives and have the students collaborate and figure out what some things that are outside of their comfort zone, but also in a way that is positive and builds kind of these relationships for the entire university experience.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for the introductions. Excited to jump in here. I think we're going to stop screen sharing so we can see each other's faces a little bit more easily. And I think, for the students who are listening in here, I hope this highlights just the diversity of people we have on this call. It really is a hallmark to one of our goals of this program, which is to provide a really interesting and unique interdisciplinary opportunity for students to work together with other students they may not get to spend time with or work with on a normal basis. So that's one of our main goals of the program, and I hope you can see that we really, are representative of a large part of the university, as well as having some of our international partners joining us as well. So to jump right in here, I think the first question, and really for the panelists, we're hoping that students will get a little bit of a takeaway of what the program is like, on a day-to-day basis, what to expect if they're interested in doing the Plus Three program. I'm wondering, for those of you who have, been on the ground on locations with Plus Three as a program assistant or as a faculty member, or Sonia, from your perspective, managing it, on the other side, what is a typical day on the program like? What, from your perspective, is the Plus Three experience like? So I don't know if anyone wants to just jump in, or I can certainly start calling out names, but.
I'll jump in. I can
Thanks,
give
Brian.
a little bit of a role on how Plus Three works in Vietnam, which some of these hallmarks that I'll explain right now are very similar across the board, which are, when I talk about Plus Three, I talk about it as having two main consistent factors. One is site visits to companies, which could either be a for-profit organization, a nonprofit organization, or a government organization. And those site visits usually are tied to the academic theme of the program. All of the programs here have a different academic theme. The theme in Vietnam is development. And so we dive into what development means, and then go to locations that really have to do with development, both from an economic standpoint, from a physical infrastructure standpoint, from an educational standpoint, from a health and medical standpoint. And so if you kind of think about half of your days are filled with those type of visits, the other half of the days are filled with cultural visits. And so this will range from going to a Buddhist temple, to going to the Mekong River Delta, to going to one of my favorite cultural visits, which is the Cu Chi Tunnel System, which is a very unique in the world location in which the North Vietnamese, or the Viet Cong, during the American War, utilized this tunnel system to stay underground and hide, to avoid bombing. So there's a wide variety of different visits. The company, you're busy all day. I think that's another hallmark of the program. It's a 2-week program, and you're kind of at it from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. type of thing, right? I think in Vietnam, it's a little bit more like 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And so we leave the hotel, we stay at a hotel, The hotel used to be the former headquarters of the CIA, the American CIA during the Vietnam War. And so that's a unique piece to the +3 Vietnam program, is that we stay in a hotel. They have a great breakfast. The Vietnamese are very keen on having savory breakfast, and so be ready to have some pho for breakfast, which is a really wonderful component of the trip, and some very rich dark coffee. So coffee and soup for breakfast, right? When it's 100 degrees outside. So
It works somehow. It works.
And so I think from an academic standpoint, the last thing I'll wrap up with is that there's a lot of hallmarks that are consistent between all of the programs. One of those is blogging. And so all students on the +3 Vietnam program are asked to submit a blog entry every day. And that blog entry is prompted by the faculty member. And it will usually be tied to something that happened that day. And to say, you know, we went to the US Embassy. What were your thoughts and how that ties to development in the country of Vietnam? So that blog is an academic exercise. We know that in experiential education, which is learning by doing, which is what everyone on this program is facilitating, that reflection on what just happened is critical to learning. The blog also has a good piece where it keeps your mom and your dad and your friends and your family up to date with what the heck's going on every day, right? When you're going to this strange foreign land. And so you can upload pictures, and so it's a great way to communicate with those back home. It's a great way to learn. Some of the other activities we do academically are we set you up into small groups, and before you go, and you'll do a presentation on one of the organizations we're going to visit. So that's a really clever thing that we do, because it will prepare 100% of the students in the class for 100% of the visits we're going on. So we don't show up to an organization cold. That would also be embarrassing in some ways, because you wouldn't know what the organization does or what questions to ask. And so we very get high remarks back from the visits we go on for how well prepared the Pitt students are. So I think with that, I'll wrap that piece up, and maybe I'll just flip it to a random person. Dr. Teeter, you're in my top left corner, so why don't we go to you?
Sure, I can take over. Thanks, Brian. Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head. Really, these programs are, it's a study abroad where you are doing a lot of stuff in a 2-week program. You're earning 3 credits in 2 weeks, which means there are meetings that you attend before you go. There are pre-departure meetings that kind of provide that cultural basis and background so that you know what you're getting yourself into. And then when you're on the ground, we're filling it with so many different things. I'm going to just share my screen real quick, if you don't mind, because I just want to show a couple of the different things that we do on our trip. Hello. So if we come here, this is the blog that Brian was talking about. So here we're looking at, this is our +3 Costa Rica. You have it for each of the different sites. And the students get to really come in and provide some good insight into the different things that they have learned. We study coffee and tropical agriculture in Costa Rica. And so each day I send out a prompt that the students have to think about during the day, and they have to respond to. And we get some really insightful commentary from the different students. And so it's really, they're collecting all of this throughout the trip and building those experiences. Talking about the daily life in a trip like this. So again, I'm just going to show a couple photos here. Try not to make you too motion sick. But, we're studying coffee. We get into the country, and, we have experiences on the way. We did yoga in the airport, for example. We had a 5-hour layover. But we explore the city. We have classroom work where the students are collaborating and working together on creative projects, getting them to think outside of their normal expectations. We have dance lessons where the students are going to learn local dance, like salsa, so that they can have some cultural experiences outside of the class. We come, and a lot of this is going to be built on these site visits where we talk with, this is the owner of one of the large coffee plantations, the manager. And so he goes in depth on importation and exportation, a lot of stuff that is really fascinating that you don't get to see on a normal, tour of, say, a coffee plantation in Costa Rica. So the students each have kind of a theme that they're working on with their groups. And each of the different sites and visits, as we go out and talk with them, are trying to do investigations and collect data on those themes. So there are a lot of really great informative experiences. We visit a lot of coffee plantations, and we say, well, aren't all coffee plantations the same? And it's not that case, because each one has a different thing that they're focused on, right? So importation on one, or sales and marketing on another. And so we get to see a lot of different dimensions of kind of the coffee experience. Let me just, scroll ahead for here just a little bit. We tour downtown San Jose and talk about the history and the architecture and how it has become, the type of nation that it is. A lot of cultural experiences, as well as, I'm just going to skip real quick. This is a really exciting project that we worked on in a rural village in Monteverde, where we basically rebuilt a playground with them. We painted over some equipment, we planted a garden, we worked with them all day to build the community. So there's a service learning component that we built into this that helps to help the students think more about what it means to be involved in the local culture. And so each of the different sites will have something that's similar to this, some flavor where you focus on not just the core academic content, but also engagement and building those experiences and relationships with other students, so that they have, so they build those networks for a long time. Again, as I mentioned, we have in Costa Rica the homestay, which is unique to our location. Primarily because a lot of students come in with some Spanish background. They've studied Spanish for a couple of years in high school, and they want to have that immersion experience. And so we found that with that, the students, figure out how to communicate with families, and they learn the culture a little bit more dynamically. And they come away from it, building these relationships with these families that, they're friends on Facebook, and their Tico mamas send them messages and say, how are you doing? How's school? And these are the reasons why our students continue to study abroad, is because you dip the toe in the pool of +3. It's only 2 weeks, so if you feel homesick, you're home in 2 weeks. But for students that really kind of get that wonderful experience and get that itch to go somewhere else, it's a really great springboard to go off to other different locations as well.
Thank you, Ryan. And also, that was a really cool trick, by the way, with your background. So thank you for, I don't know how you did that, but it looks really cool. Chris, Grant, Sonia, anything else to add about your respective locations that you've been to, or just from your perspective, anything you'd like to say about, the daily life on the program?
Yeah, I can continue.
Sure.
Thank you all for the insightful reports. It was very interesting to hear about the other +3 programs, because usually you only talk about your own +3 program. I knew that there were other countries and Vietnam and other places, but I wasn't really sure about what the focus was. So that was very insightful. Well, maybe for +3 Germany, for all the students that are listening and watching. So +3 Germany is about the automotive supply chain. So it's also students from the business and engineering school, like with the Costa Rica program. And basically our 2 weeks are very full as well. I can't really say that we have an 8 till 5 schedule. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and we return very late in the evening, but that's okay. So the program starts usually with a city tour of Augsburg, led by Dr. Feig, remarkably. So because he basically lives in Augsburg. Yeah, so he knows his way around. And then we usually plan, if it's possible, all the company visits in the first week. So we go to 5 different companies from the automotive supply chain, for instance, Audi or BMW. And there we get a factory tour and also a talk on strategy or R&D. And yeah, I think it's 4 American students and 3 German students work together in a team working on one specific company, and they give 2 presentations during the 2 weeks on this company. And yeah, we also have a lot of cultural visits. So either we combine these cultural visits with the company visits, or we do everything separately depending on where these companies are located. So for instance, we go on a trip to Munich, to Regensburg, which is a very old, beautiful city. We go to Neuschwanstein, the fairy tale castle. We have specific, culturally specific activities like a traditional sausage breakfast, which was also an idea by Dr. Feig, because us locals don't apparently know everything about where we live. So yeah, so we do these traditional food events, so to say. Yeah, and then students in the end have 1 day off, so they can also travel. So many students went to Salzburg, for instance, or to some other places. So it's great that they are then in the end of the 2 weeks able to travel on their own. Yeah, and in Germany, students also stay at a hotel. We changed the hotel, I think 2 or 3 years ago. And the new one is more comfortable. Yeah, I think Hillary was staying in the old one.
Oh, the Bay and Bay.
And Ariel, you have only been staying in the new one, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, I think I've only heard good things about the new hotel, so it should be a bit better than the old one. So I think it's great. They have a waffle maker because Brian breakfast. So I think yeah, everyone doesn't start their day hungry. So yeah, that's basically it. We have some organized dinners, but only a few. So students like to eat on their own in the evening. Yeah, so I think that was.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much.
Ask or yeah, but thank you.
Thank you, Sonia.
So this is Dr. Martzoff. I think the only thing that I'll add, our trip is very similar to what's been described here in terms of the cultural visits and the site visits, but I think what's particularly unique about our trip is the focus on healthcare.
Yeah.
Right? So I believe that we're the only healthcare related trip, and putting business students and nursing students together has created a very unique environment. And one thing I particularly like about Argentina is that it's a middle income country. So what's interesting about middle income countries is in urban centers, Buenos Aires, it feels very much like a classic international city like Paris or London or New York. But as soon as, so you get to see some of the most world-class hospitals in the world, like UPMC or any hospital that you would see in a major city across the world. But at the same time, we spend a lot of time in the countryside where it feels very similar to a very low-income country, and we have some interaction with the public health system. So you see both the sort of the world-class hospital system and then also very basic public health delivery. And that's one of the things that I've found most interesting about our trip.
Thank you. Chris, anything you want to add in there?
No, I mean, they have pretty much said it all. I think from the student perspective, while it's a trip, it's still a class, so there is downtime, and a lot of that downtime students in the past have used to do things like blogs or work on their final project. On the last trip that we were in China, there was a lot of travel within the country, so the train rides or the bus rides, students were collaborating during those times to really help maximize their time during the entire trip.
Wonderful. Great. I'm actually really feeling sad that I'm not there right now on any of these places. I feel like it just, seeing the pictures and hearing us talk about this, it makes me really want to go there again. But I will move on to our next question, which will be a two-part question. And I'm curious, from all of your different perspectives, what is the most challenging aspect of the program for students? And then the second part of that question would be, what's the biggest benefit that you've seen students gaining from participating on a program like this? And let's start with Christine, since we didn't hear from you the last time.
Oh boy, I thought I might be put in the hot seat.
Sorry, you have to know by now.
I'm okay.
Alex.
Well, I think, you know, again, I have a lot of history with this program, so to be perfectly honest, I sometimes lose track because I've literally been involved in sending, at this point, more than 1,000. I honestly am not even sure anymore. I'd have to count. But what I think can be challenging is often students just, and I'm really eager to hear what the faculty and program administrators involved would say about this, but I think sometimes for students, it's really a matter of not really fully appreciating how tough it can be to have to travel with a bunch of people on the same schedule all night, in each other's space, 24/7. And I mean, I'm really speaking on the students' behalf too. I think it can be probably a little more difficult than what they realize, because you have to be a really good team player. You have to be willing to quite frankly, put your ego aside and listen, and to have a humility in learning from those that you have the privilege to get to meet on these programs. And that's something that I think is hard to convey to our students until they actually get into that experience, and you have to feel it and live through it, basically. So I've always found students sharing that surprise with me over the years, and I'm not really, I find I get it. It makes sense that is challenging to you know, put yourself in that mindset of really being excited yet kind of checking yourself and really, again, having a willingness to listen to others, to respect others, and to be, again, you know, somebody who's easygoing and ready to go with the flow. I in all my years of advising engineering students in the tens of thousands at this point, that a big message I like to convey is, you want to do something like this, you really have to think about how flexible you are, because things are not going to go to plan. There's going to be a lot of things that go wrong. I'm looking at some of my friends in this meeting and their stories, which I will refrain from sharing, but you know, it's pretty much a guarantee that something's going to go off script.
Yeah.
And really, I think that's probably some of the bigger challenges. Hillary, I think you asked about sort of the rewards. Was that a second?
Yeah, so the other part of that would be, you know, what is the biggest benefit to students participating in this? And I think a lot of times the challenge and the benefit are similar, but.
Agreed. Yes, absolutely. You just nailed it. I mean, I think you can look at what I explained as a wonderful growth opportunity as well. And, you know, to be in your first year or at the end of your first year as a +3 participant, it's pretty impressive to be able to articulate a lot of the learning that you've experienced. Because again, you can talk about, okay, I went to this organization. I got to see the production of coffee in Costa Rica firsthand. I learned about the various moving parts of that. All of the very specific experiences that students get in these programs can be very important to articulating career interests. Also, you know, just having something to, if you're looking to kind of differentiate yourself, if you will, to stand out, you know, there are good stories to share. And so I really like to encourage, and the blogs are a great way to kind of encapsulate a lot of that and take it with you. Mm-hmm. I would say that's definitely a really, you know, with the challenges, that also brings the growth. And that's probably one of my proudest observations of having been one of the architects of +3 with others for such a long time now. Thanks.
Thanks, Christine. Yeah, I was going to say, what I thought I heard you saying was, the challenge of, having to be flexible in terms of the program itself really leads to developing your capability of being adaptable. And then we can go and talk about a slew of other, positive benefits, skills, and things like that that students can gain from it. Sorry, I cut someone off. I'm failing at my moderator role.
Yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
one thing that I was going to mention was every student that ends up on a +3 trip is very smart. They get good grades. That's one of the prerequisites for being on the trip. I have found that the students that do well are the ones that aren't necessarily, everyone does well on tests and does well in classroom, but the ones that do especially well are the ones that are particularly interested and curious and studious, because this is a fully immersed learning environment where cramming for the exam and getting an A isn't going to quite cut it, because everybody can do that. Where the people that haven't done well are ones that aren't inherently interested in things that might not interest them, right? But the ones that do well are the ones that can sort of show up and be in a place where maybe the topic isn't in their wheelhouse and of deep interest to them, but they can engage and be thoughtful and ask thoughtful questions. And that's a kind of a different skill set than getting A's on exams. And so I think that there's a sort of more fully born sort of virtue of studiousness that makes people successful. And also, a lot of the skills that are needed for this trip are ones that are real skills that you'll need in your career later on. Again, everybody's smart. Everybody does well in class. But again, being responsible and punctual and engaged and thoughtful, that's actually what makes people very successful on these trips. And I think that sometimes that challenges students because they're not used to being on 24 hours a day with professors watching them.
That's very true. Brian, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I would say,
Go ahead, Ryan.
Brian or Ryan, that's the always the problem. Go ahead, Brian. Brian and then Ryan.
I was going to echo what Dr. Martsoff said here, is that one of the key things is being curious, and curious to both your interest areas and curious to things outside of it, which is also travel 101, right? To be curious about, wow, this is interesting. Why does it work this way? Rather than saying, ew, I don't like how that tastes or smells or looks because it's different than what I know. So this is not just getting to the place where you are tolerating difference, but you are leaning into it and celebrating the differences that you're finding. I often find that that's the real hook that travel sinks in your lip. I think just two quick things about Vietnam. I think the difficult thing of Vietnam is kind of a badge of courage or badge of honor, which is a ridiculously long flight path. You are going halfway around the world and it feels like it. You will understand what jet lag is and how it feels. In just about the time you get over jet lag, you're getting back on the plane to come home. So the challenge is not just the physical component of jet lag, but it's the professional component of being asked to perform a pretty rigorous schedule while kind of feeling tired or wanting to fall asleep at noon, or, it's just an odd thing. So it's a great challenge physically and mentally, I would argue. I think the real upside and the cool thing that I view about Vietnam is for American students especially, to be able to go to a place where there was a very prominent conflict, the Vietnam War, of which much has been written. There is a great Ken Burns documentary on it. And then to go and be there, to discuss this with local students, and to see really frankly how graceful they are and how they treat Americans. The culture in Vietnam is a very friendly culture. They have moved on, but remember. And so Americans are welcomed to the country, and American students are welcomed by our Vietnamese student cohorts, which is to some students surprising. As an American myself, I may be ticked off about what happened during that conflict. But the Vietnamese do not feel that same kind of regret or remorse towards Americans. So it's a great twist to see how time can start to heal, but reconciliation and to lean into reconciling differences. It's an active approach. And that this program, I view, is a part of that reconciliation, even 50 years later here. So Ryan, to you.
Excellent
Ryan.
enunciation.
Yeah. So, we've talked a lot about the kind of academic benefits, the having curiosity, having challenges in that respect. I'll add a different dimension, which is just, setting our expectations for cultural, norms. Each of these places is very, very different from what you are likely to have experienced in your high school or first year in university. And there a lot of it is kind of understanding what the expectations are, what the norms are. There's always the challenge of food, because some of these places have very, very strange food, and you have to be able to express, or well, try things, but also express when things aren't acceptable, or when you can't do things, and that's kind of a challenge when you're not entirely fluent with the culture. So there is that part of it. I mean, that is a challenge whether you go to Germany or Vietnam or Japan or Costa Rica. But on the flip side is, again, you learn so much of these interpersonal skills. For my students in Costa Rica, a lot of it's learning, body language, being able to communicate with non-English speaking host families, and, navigating the streets and the taxis, and kind of getting into that experience where, we don't hold your hand. We hold your hands a little bit, but we don't hold them all the time. And so part of it is going out and experiencing what that is. And I think that is one of the things. And being adaptable. In Costa Rica, we have Tico time, which is kind of like, maybe the day will start at 8 a.m. or maybe it'll be 10 a.m. because depending on when people show up and are available for the thing, we learn flexibility with that type of culture. And we learn to be flexible with, when the volcanoes are erupting and there's ash that may potentially inhibit our ability to get home on the airplane. These are all things that are really exciting, but also, part of the experience.
Thank you, Ryan. So since you brought up sort of that cultural aspect, I would love to, Sonia, hear your perspective, being a representative of the university that we work with in Germany. What have you seen has been a challenge for our students on the program, or what have you seen them gain throughout their 2 weeks in Germany?
I think following up to what Ryan said with the flexibility, I think for us it's the opposite. Everything people really have to be on time. So we kind of sometimes have to chase people that they show up on time, or so that's kind of a specific aspect about Germany, I think, which was also something I was gonna say regarding the challenges of the program, like on the whole, that you kind of have to manage time, which is kind of for me one of the main points, like also on a day-to-day basis, not just planning, like playing Tetris with the program elements so that everything works, but also like on a daily basis. So when you're rushing from point A to B because there was a delay or whatever. So, but students have been very cooperative, and, you have to kind of, they know that it's hard to plan this kind of program, and they've mostly been very understanding and very cooperative. So that's really, really great. Yeah. About this cultural, personal benefits or takeaways. Well, I've seen so many friendships develop. There was a group of, I think, 3 German girls who participated in +3, I think 2 years ago or 3, and then they went to Pittsburgh a year after because they were doing an exchange semester at Indiana University in Bloomington, I think. So they like did a trip to Pittsburgh and visited this +3 gang. And they kind of sent us a lot of pictures. You saw also there was one in the presentation, or two, I think, from Monday. Yeah, so that's amazing. And I see how they evolve over these 2 weeks from being very shy, of course, jet lag, suffering people. I mean, that's all very understandable. And I can understand that they want to sleep on the bus and everything. That's fine. That's why we have these long bus rides. That's okay. But they like grow over the 2 weeks and they know their way around. And then the questions you get, they differ from beginning to the end of the trip. So yeah, and it's also great for us coordinators because I've made so many friends also through this program, Ariel or Hillary and other people that were there in the past. I even made friends with one participant, which was kind of a special situation from, I think, also 2 years ago, because we have the same like cultural background. So that was kind of a thing for us. Yeah, so it's, I don't know what to summarize. Yeah.
I'm really glad you brought up that friendship piece because I think it's a really amazing thing that happens on +3 and it's really unique to this program. I've been involved in a lot of other study abroad programs and I've never seen that kind of relationship forming as I do on +3. So it's really cool. I'm really, and yeah, I think you're right, Sonia, for those of us on the staff and faculty side, you know, we experience that as well. So that's why it's always so rewarding. I think I can speak for the group for us to all continue to be involved in this particular program. Chris, did you want to add anything?
Just speaking to the students specifically, I think with the +3 trips, they're very structured, but there's also going to be time where, you know, you're able to, you know, experience the culture. And I think for all students, one of the things that I love to see and hear from students is when they have that "you're not in Kansas anymore" moment of things are going to be different. As a 6'4" man in China in the middle of Tiananmen Square, I knew I was different. I had lots of pictures taken of me, willingly or unwillingly, and that for me was a kind of, okay, this is different type of moment. And I think for the students, it's all about how you react to that. And as a collective, as a team, you really build some bonds in those elements. And you know, being a fish out of water can be a really fun thing. As a team, you're experiencing those things together. So you're never going to be in an unsafe situation by any stretch of the imagination, but there are going to be times where your comfort levels might be pushed just culturally, and that's a good thing to have as a global citizen.
That's such a great point, Chris. Thank you. And I will say we've gotten a few comments or questions from students as we've been chatting here about, you know, is this a really competitive program? What should I be thinking about in terms of my application? So to the students, I would say, I hope you're really listening to these discussion points about the challenges and the key takeaways, because I would say for us, we really look at the quality of the students' application essay questions. And these are really great kind of points that you should be considering as you're writing your application, and it will really make you stand out is being able to articulate this understanding that you're getting from this session, because everything that's been said here is really spot on. So I hope you know, you can utilize this and towards your application and really giving yourself a little bit of a leg up as far as that would go. So I had a ton of questions I was going to ask. I don't know what I thought I was doing here, but I'm just going to go ahead and ask kind of our last question since we are nearing the end of our time. And that question is really, and I'll kind of make this a little bit larger and not just necessarily tied to +3, but if a student is on the fence about participating in this program or really any study abroad program where they're not quite sure if study abroad is for them or how to get involved in the global perspective, what advice would you give to a student if they're kind of questioning that?
I'll jump on. Is that Brian? He's like, unmute.
Brian, Ryan.
So there are a couple things to be aware of. The first one is, this is a very popular program. We have a lot of students who have gone on these experiences, and chances are you've probably run into them at some point. The best way to figure out whether it's right for you is to talk with your friends and talk with students who have gone on this program. If you go to the plus3.blog website, there's a list of all the students there that have gone on it, and you may know them from your residence hall, or you may know them from classes that you're in. Reach out to them, because all of the students who have gone on these programs are really excited to talk about it. They have such great experiences. They will say, this is what we liked, this is what we didn't like, this is what we did when Professor Teeter wasn't watching, this is, these are the things to look out for. And you kind of get a real, experience from their perspective, which may be different from what we as faculty and advisors have, right? So we know what we think is important, and the students sometimes place importance on different things. And, talk with people, because they will share pictures and they'll say, this was great, this wasn't, they'll be very honest about those experiences. Go ahead, Brian.
You're exactly right, Ryan. It was one of the things I wanted to mention was to go read the blogs, go get some information peer-to-peer. All of my illustrious colleagues aside, like, I have gray hair, I'm old. I'm going to tell you what I think, we're really trying to do from a structural standpoint and educational standpoint. But these programs are fun. If you view that kind of being challenged and being curious about a topic and to go explore is fun, these are things to pursue. My push to kind of Hillary's question here, which is why participate in this, is whether we like it or not, whether it is in vogue or not, globalization, it's not something to be pro or con about. It just kind of is. We live in a globalized world. And so to prepare yourself, whatever line of work or study you have in your undergraduate degree or what happens in your next step, most likely will have a global element to it or will be contextualized globally. So dig into it, lean into it, become a globally competent human being. There's a lot of ways to become globally competent. You can read The Economist, you can take Spanish courses, you can pursue internationally minded degrees. But a really wonderful way to expand your global competency is to get on a train, a boat, or in a car, leave your country, and to go see how things are done in a different context. And then, if you're like me, I didn't want to go study abroad 20 some years ago. It's actually 30 some. I actually tried to get out of it. And now here I am, having traveled to 50 some countries and work in the global space. Your mind will shift. Almost universally, students will find that this occurs. So don't miss out.
I was just going to add, I love that, Brian, by the way. Absolutely, it's amazing how it just can open your eyes very wide, and hopefully they stay that way. And you're constantly becoming a student of life. Because if I may, kind of, Brian and I go back a few years too, and it's like as you move forward in life, you hope that these early experiences end up kind of continuing to lead you in a direction that you want to go. And so, for me, it's the same. You get a spark from this kind of experience, and it's very hard to quash that afterwards. I mean, you get the hunger, and it just kind of like it's always there. And that's something that I've seen in my career of 20 plus years with students, and it never gets old. It's so incredibly rewarding to see our younger students continue to become citizens of the world. And this is a really terrific way to get that started if you haven't had the opportunity to begin it sooner in your life. I do want to add a somewhat practical piece of advice, if I may, which is, maybe I'm stating the obvious here, but you need to get your support networks on board. So your families, anyone who is involved in helping support you in your education, they need to be comfortable with your decision. This is not something to just spring on them out of the blue. have those discussions and make sure they understand what the structure is all about. Empower them, because quite honestly, they deserve that. I mean, of course, you know, it's just a respectful decision to keep in mind, because there's cost, obviously, and there's time, and there is, you know, it takes planning. So now's the time to make sure that you're discussing that at home, and, you know, be sure that folks around you are on board and, you know, are excited about it with you, because that's a critical marker of success that we've certainly seen over the years we've had this program. Thanks.
Hillary, can I add one more comment here?
Sure.
I just want to mention as we're getting closer to the end. So the way that +3 works is you choose locations that you'd like to go, but you don't always get to go to your first choice. And so, you know, you may really want to go to Costa Rica, for example, and you get to go to Germany instead. And I've had students that have been, you know, they really had their heart set on going to Germany and ended up coming to Costa Rica. And that's part of the program. And you know, it's fantastic to see those students that come in and not necessarily getting their first choice, but opening up to like, wow, there's this whole other world that I wasn't really focused on in going to a different location. So it's nice to have an open mind on the different locations, because each one has its own unique challenges and benefits and different things. And so, you know, I was going to actually comment on Sonia's remark, because we also have in Costa Rica German time, which is when people are supposed to be on time and at the meeting, as opposed to Tico time, which is what everybody else follows. So, you know, there is some cultural overlap. And, you know, even, you know, there are some locations that are more business focused versus engineering focused and vice versa. And, you know, the students that don't necessarily have that as their high interest, like this is the thing that I'm studying, come away from it with these really good cross, you know, disciplinary experiences. And so they say, you know, I hadn't thought about that engineering aspect in my business courses, and it really kind of makes that whole education experience much more rich.
Thank you. Chris, Grant, Sonia, anyone? Chris.
To play off of Ryan's point, I know on the trips that I've gone on, we've had a number of students who this was their second or third choice, but they had zero regrets about it. And just from the friendships they made and what they've experienced. And I love hearing from the students who, I'll just go anywhere. And I think, you know, in this time frame when all I see is people on Zoom, I'm ready to go anywhere. So, you know, don't make sure that make sure that you're talking with your folks I'm seeing in the chat about all of the different, you know, options that are available to you, but be open. And also, if you're on the fence, understand this is just 2 weeks. You are not going away for 4 and 5 months. So you're getting that little taste of an international experience to really see what your next step is going to be, whether that is a full semester, year, summer, or just, you know, maybe study abroad, you know, is or isn't for me. But this is a good taste of that.
Yeah. I think the only thing that I would add is there's really little downside, honestly, to doing +3. I mean, there's tremendous upside. There's relatively little downside. You know, I sort of think about this is the one opportunity when you can travel to a really interesting place and get college credit for it, right? You know, by the time you graduate and you get a job and you sort of have your future in front of you, very few of us will then be able to travel again. I think this is just a great opportunity to take advantage of this moment where have a lot of freedom. And even when you look at the price of these trips, once you factor in the fact that you get 3 credits of college credit, this becomes a very inexpensive, very interesting way to travel and see a part of the world that you most likely will never have a chance to do again. So
Thank you.
take advantage of it when you can.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And then I suppose our last word goes to my friend Sonia. Sonia, would you like to add your insight here?
A little bit like what Ryan said about the interdisciplinary aspect. That's also something I really enjoy, also for myself, because I have no engineering background whatsoever. So it's always nice to talk to people who really look at the things more from an engineering standpoint and kind of see this also in the students' presentations and everything and the questions that they ask. So that's really something I also like about +3. And then the other aspects, mainly I would also give the advice to, it's the best chance to leave your comfort zone, because at some point you will have to do that. So you can do that now because you're not completely, we say in Germany, thrown into the cold water. So you're not alone on your own, you're with a group, everything is supervised, organized, and so on, but still you're experiencing so many new things. So it's kind of a good balance between, well, leaving your comfort zone, but not so much that you're completely lost and have to do everything on your own. So I think that's perfect for such young students like freshmen, and it's perfect. And then they can, hopefully they will decide to do a longer like study abroad somewhere else or in the same country. Yeah, so my advice, do it, you won't regret it.
Thank you. So we're almost exactly on time. So yay, everyone. I just want to thank you all again so much for spending this hour with us. I think there were so many really insightful comments here. I know I'm really excited about the possibility of this program, thanks to our chat here this afternoon. To the students, I would say the +3 website is a great way to stay in touch with updates and things like that. And you'll also be able to find your program manager there specific to your school. So if you are interested in learning more, and thanks Ryan for being my tech second hand here, putting all these links in the chat. You can go ahead there and you'll find your program managers. You can schedule appointments with them to talk more in detail if you have questions about specific locations, pricing, all of that kind of more detailed discussion. And we will also share the recording here so you can revisit it if you like. But again, one more time, thank you so much to all of our wonderful panelists for sharing your experience and your insights. I'm really appreciative of you all taking the time.
Thank you, Hillary, for being.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hillary.
And Holly.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. We're excited to have you apply, students. Have a good day.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Yep.
Bye.